A day in the life of a drug dealer. Your phone buzzes at 5:52 a.m., 8 minutes before your alarm, and you already know it's not good news. Nobody texts you that early with good news. You stare at the ceiling for a second before you even check it, because the 4 seconds before you know something is sometimes the calmest part of your entire day. This is what a normal day actually looks like, not the version people imagine, with stacks of cash and nothing to lose. The version where every single hour carries its own separate risk, and you're the only person keeping track of all of them at once. Nobody clocks in for this job. There's no orientation, no handbook, no manager checking whether you showed up on time. There's just a phone that never fully stops, and a version of you that's had to become considerably more disciplined than most people who've never done this would ever assume. 5:52 a.m., the first message. The text is from a customer named Danny, and it says he's short again this week. Can he get one more day? You don't answer right away. Answering right away makes you look like you're sitting by the phone, and you never want anyone to think you're sitting by the phone. You get up, make coffee, and let the message sit for 11 minutes before responding. Fine, today, not tomorrow. 3 words, no punctuation, no warmth, because warmth is the first thing people take advantage of in this business. Danny's not dangerous. Danny's just late, and late has a way of becoming a habit if you let it. You learned that the hard way 2 years ago with somebody else, somebody whose name you don't say out loud anymore. You've built a whole informal system for exactly this kind of message, a mental ledger of who's been late once, who's been late 3 times, who's approaching the point where one more day stops being a reasonable request and starts being a pattern you can't afford to keep tolerating. Danny's still early in that ledger. You make a note anyway. 7:15 a.m., the inventory. You keep product in 3 separate locations, never more than a day's worth in any one place at a time. This morning, you're checking the smallest stash, tucked behind a false panel in a bedroom closet that took you a weekend and a YouTube video to build correctly. You count everything twice, not because you don't trust your own math, but because a miscount today becomes a much bigger problem 3 transactions from now when you're trying to remember which version of the number was actually right. Weighing it out for the day takes 20 minutes, broken into the specific quantities each customer on today's list actually needs. You've learned not to prepare more than the day requires. Extra product moving around is extra risk moving around, and risk doesn't care how organized you think you are. You log everything by hand first, then transfer it to the coded notes app later, a redundancy that saved you once already when your phone died mid-morning and you needed to remember exactly what you'd left with. Small habits like this rarely feel important in the moment they're built. They only feel important the one day they actually matter. 8:40 a.m., the drive. You never take the same route twice in a row. It sounds paranoid until the one day it isn't, and by then it's too late to start being careful. You've mapped out 6 different ways to reach your first stop, and you pick between them based on a feeling you can't fully explain to anyone who's never had to develop it. Your car is registered to a cousin who doesn't drive it, insured, inspected, nothing about it that would give an officer a reason to look twice. A broken taillight has ended careers in this line of work faster than anything a rival ever managed to do, and you check yours every single morning like it's a ritual. The radio stays off during drops. You want to hear everything around you, every car that slows down a beat too long, every person who glances at you twice. Silence isn't peaceful in this job. It's a tool. You've also learned to read a street the way other people read a room, noticing which cars belong and which ones don't, which windows have curtains that just moved, which neighbor happens to be out watering a lawn at a time of day that doesn't quite match their usual schedule. None of it is dramatic. It's just attention, sustained for hours at a time, until it stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like breathing. 9:05 a.m., the first drop. Your first stop is a regular, someone you've been serving for almost 2 years, quick and practiced in a way that barely qualifies as a conversation anymore. 30 seconds, maybe less, an exchange that looks to anyone watching from outside like 2 neighbors saying hello. This is the customer you actually like, not because he pays on time, though he does, but because he never wastes your time with small talk you don't have room for. Some people want this to feel like a relationship. You want it to feel like nothing happened at all. You're back in the car before the light at the end of the block even changes. 9 minutes total, door to door, and you're already thinking about the next stop before this one's fully behind you. 10:20 a.m. The problem customer. Your second stop isn't as clean. This customer, a guy named Marcus, wants to talk, wants advice, wants you to be something more than the person who sells him what he's asking for. You've learned to be polite and brief because rudeness creates resentment, and resentment eventually turns into somebody talking to the wrong person about the wrong thing. Marcus mentions almost casually that a friend of his got picked up last week 2 towns over. You don't react visibly, but internally you're already running through everyone you know who might be connected to that name, checking whether it touches anything close to you. It doesn't, as far as you can tell, but as far as you can tell is a phrase you've learned to never fully trust, because the moment you stop double-checking it is usually the moment it stops being true. You end the visit a little faster than usual, not rudely, just efficiently, the kind of exit that leaves Marcus feeling like the conversation ran its natural course, rather than like you cut it short on purpose. Reading a room accurately and leaving it before anyone notices you've read it is its own specific skill nobody teaches you directly. You just get better at it, one slightly uncomfortable visit at a time. 11:45 a.m. The supplier call. Your supplier calls instead of texting, which never means anything good. You step outside, away from anyone who might overhear even half of a conversation that sounds like nothing to anyone but you. He tells you the price is going up starting next week, some disruption further up the chain that he doesn't explain and you don't ask about. You do the math in your head while he's still talking, recalculating your entire week's margin in real time without him ever knowing you're doing it. This is the part of the job nobody outside it ever imagines. It's not a shootout or a chase. It's a supply chain problem, the exact same kind of conversation happening in offices everywhere, except the stakes if this particular vendor relationship falls apart look nothing like a supply chain problem anywhere else. You hang up and stand outside for another minute before going back in, running the new numbers against every customer on your list, figuring out who absorbs the increase and who you can't realistically pass it on to without losing them entirely. It's the same math a small business owner runs constantly, minus the part where a bad decision costs you considerably more than a lost customer. 1 p.m. Lunch that isn't really lunch. You eat in your car in a parking lot you rotate between, never the same one 2 days running. This isn't paranoia for its own sake. It's the accumulated habit of 100 small decisions that, added together, are the entire reason you're still doing this instead of sitting somewhere explaining yourself to a detective. You scroll through your phone while you eat, not social media, just your own coded notes app, tracking who owes what, who's due when, who's been acting different lately in a way that might mean something or might mean nothing. Half of this job is bookkeeping nobody would ever guess exists behind it. A car pulls into the lot and parks 2 spaces down, and your entire body goes still for exactly the amount of time it takes to confirm it's just someone eating a sandwich on their own lunch break. Your heart doesn't fully believe the confirmation until a full minute later. 2:30 p.m. The collection. Danny, from this morning's text, meets you behind a strip mall to pay what he owes plus a little extra you didn't ask for but also don't refuse. He apologizes 3 separate times in under 2 minutes, and you tell him it's fine, even though the two of you both know that if this becomes a pattern, fine has a limit. You don't threaten him. Threats are loud, and loud is the one thing you can genuinely never afford in this line of work. Instead, you simply stop being flexible the next time, and people learn considerably faster from consequences than they ever learn from words. He hands you the cash rolled tight, the way you taught him to hand it over months ago, and you're gone within 90 seconds, already 3 blocks away before he's finished getting back in his own car. 3:50 p.m. The close call. A patrol car pulls in behind you at a red light, and every single thing in your chest tightens at once. You check your mirror, check your speed, check that your hands are exactly where a hand should be on a steering wheel, all in the space of about 2 seconds. The light turns green, the patrol car turns right. You keep driving straight, and it takes almost a full mile before your grip on the wheel actually loosens back to normal. This happens most days, in one form or another, and it never once stops registering in your body the same way it did the very first time. You've thought, more than once, what it would actually feel like to not carry this specific kind of tension every single day. You've never quite been able to picture it clearly enough to actually want it more than you want the money. Later, you'll wonder whether the officer even noticed you at all, whether the entire minute of adrenaline was for absolutely nothing. You'll never actually know, and not knowing is its own separate weight you carry alongside everything else. One more small uncertainty in a day that's already made up almost entirely of them. 5:15 p.m., the count. Back at your apartment, blinds already closed from this morning, you count the day's cash at your kitchen table. Same routine every single time. Separate it by denomination. Separate what's owed to your supplier from what's actually yours. Log the numbers in the same notes app from lunch. Today was an average day. Not the best, not the worst. Somewhere in the middle of a range you've come to recognize the shape of without needing to think about it consciously anymore. You set aside the supplier's cut in an envelope taped inside a kitchen cabinet, an embarrassingly simple and so far embarrassingly effective. The rest goes into an account under a legitimate-looking small business you barely maintain, just enough real activity to explain deposits that would otherwise raise exactly the kind of question you spend your entire day trying to avoid. You built that business 2 years ago specifically for this purpose, a small resale operation that genuinely does sell a handful of real items every month, just enough activity that a bank statement tells a story that holds up to a casual glance. It costs you time and a little money to maintain something that only exists to explain something entirely different. Most days, you don't think about how strange that actually is until you're sitting here doing exactly this.
6:40 p.m. The person you used to be. Your sister calls while you're making dinner, and for 11 minutes, you're not a dealer at all. You're just a brother, talking about nothing, laughing about something that happened at her actual job, a job with a badge and a schedule, and none of what your day has actually looked like since this morning. She doesn't know, not the real version. She thinks you do something vague with logistics, a lie you built years ago and have maintained so consistently that sometimes, for a few minutes at a time, you almost believe it yourself. You hang up and sit with the specific quiet that follows every one of these calls, the gap between the person she thinks she's talking to and the person actually holding the phone. It's the loneliest 11 minutes that isn't actually lonely, if that makes any sense at all, and most days you don't examine it much closer than that. Sometimes you think about what would actually happen if you told her, not out of guilt exactly, more out of a genuine curiosity about whether the relationship could survive the truth at all. You've never gotten past imagining the first sentence. Some doors, once you open them, don't close back the way they were before, and you're not willing to find out which kind this one would be. 8 p.m., the night drop. Your last stop of the day is always the one you like least, a customer who only ever wants to meet after dark, in a location that changes constantly and never for a reason he actually explains. You've considered dropping him more than once. You haven't because he pays well and complains rarely, and in this business, those two things buy considerable patience. Tonight, the location is a dead-end street behind a shuttered auto shop, and you sit in your car for a full 2 minutes before getting out, watching for anything that reads as wrong. Nothing does. You make the exchange in under a minute, and you're already turning the key before he's finished putting whatever he bought into his own pocket. Driving home, you replay the entire day the way you do every night, checking each stop against your memory for anything you might have missed in the moment. This is the part of the job that never actually ends, even once the actual work technically has. 9:45 p.m. The math that never stops. Home again, doors locked, blinds checked twice. You sit with the day's full total and do the same calculation you do most nights. What you made today against what you'd make doing literally anything else, against what a single bad day could cost you in a way no other job you're qualified for ever could. The number today is better than a legitimate job would pay, It's always better, which is exactly why this is genuinely hard to walk away from, no matter how many nights you sit at this table telling yourself you should. The math works in your favor right up until the day it catastrophically doesn't, and no amount of careful routine changes the fact that you don't get to choose which day that turns out to be. You think, some nights more than others, about the version of your life where the 5:52 a.m. text never mattered because it never came at all. You've never been able to hold on to that thought for very long. There's always tomorrow's list to think about instead, and tomorrow's list always wins. You've started and started again. A mental countdown towards some eventual exit, a number in the account you'll walk away at, a specific age, a specific sign you've told yourself you'll actually listen to when it finally shows up. The number keeps moving every time you get close to it. That's the part you've never fully admitted to yourself out loud, even sitting here alone with nobody around to hear you say it. 11:30 p.m. Lights out. You check the locks one final time before bed, a habit that has nothing to do with ordinary home security and everything to do with a specific kind of vigilance that never fully switches off even at the end of a day that went by every measure that matters in this line of work completely fine. Tomorrow starts the exact same way it started today. A phone buzzing before the alarm does, a message you won't want to read, and a full day of decisions nobody outside this life will ever fully understand the weight of, made one after another until it's dark again and you're back at this same table doing the same math. This is what the day actually looks like, stripped of everything the movies add to make it look like something worth wanting. No music behind it, no dramatic close call resolved with a clever line, just a long list of small, careful decisions repeated until the pattern holds, or on some day you can't predict, it finally doesn't. Nobody who does this for long enough thinks they're the exception. They just think today isn't the day it catches up, and most days they're right up until the specific one where being right stops being something you get to count on anymore. If this gave you a real look at what a day like this actually costs, drop a comment with what job or lifestyle you want broken down like this next, and subscribe if you want more of these. We post a new one every week.